Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never disappointed out here, because I don't expect anything, because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure. Because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
A sniper's dream, 100 nights of memory. He has me forehead, and after head goes brace for the goal. No matter who he races, he's gonna have a head start. From to glow, remembers what happened to Mom. His father stands on the second floor. Why can you still see his form? And with the comments open, shut his eyes. He got a lot on his mind. He's been told to hold that fort all his life. No sweat tries before it reaches his eyes. He needs bangs, those imaginations in 4K Ultra HD. If you drew an inch on his forehead, he would survive. His forehead says 6'5", but his eyes say 5'9". The most epic heroic song of all time. Bro's forehead has a national anthem.
Bro knew this would happen.
Hell yeah! Angler's choice, baby! John Morris, White River, Ranger, Triton, Nitro. Let's go, baby! Woo!
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
I don't know. Just to let you know, I'm pretty sure Phil was blacked out when he said that. That was I think that was the first Smith Mountain Lake event last year, BFL wise, which was just a pisser. It was raining so freaking much. Phil is not here to defend himself, so I'll just also say, I remember because we woke up that morning, we were going to fun fish. SB and I think Hunter went out already because they were fishing the tournament. It rained so much, and Phil forgot to leave his bilge on in his boat because we're running a house in the lake, and there was 38 beer cans just floating in the middle of his boat. Don't know where they came from, but they were there. That was one of the best days of my life, by the way. Phil, hope you're still alive out, buddy. Anyway, so we got a really fun show tonight. Happy Monday, everybody. It is December 9th. We are gearing up for the Christmas season. And this time of year, what we're going to be doing is just kind of getting shit ready. I basically have cleaned out the boat and the kayak. I have half my shit in the room over there, a bunch upstairs in the living room. Do not tell my wife that. And I wanted to bring on somebody else that's also a tackle junkie as we just break down shit and answer some questions. So I have on the Fable legend from down south. Chaz, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
What's up, man? Appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. What have you been up to lately?
Man, kind of a lot of what you just said. Besides working, and I have a newborn, fairly newborn. My son just is 5 months old, so not a lot of sleep, not as much fishing as I'd hoped the last 4 or 5 months, but no lack of tackle. There's that.
Is the family life getting into its pattern stride?
It's getting a little better. We had a little problem with formula, and him. He has to be on a special formula. He has intolerances and all that good stuff. So it's been a long road to get here, but finally, I think on the right formula, the right nutrition plan, and now we're just trying to nail down the sleep schedule because still not sleeping very good. But
that's freaking brutal.
Yeah, he'll have that. Can't help it. That's how newborns are. So it's definitely been an adjustment, though.
Yeah, dude, I do not envy you. That sounds like a freaking nightmare. And especially getting off the heels of last year, getting into 2025, like what do you do this time of year besides, being a dad and everything? Like, is it just the tackle prep, which we're talking about today? Or?
Well, I mean, I fish still. Don't get me wrong. So
Okay.
We don't ice out down here, so I fish all season. So I've kind of slowed down, obviously, with a newborn and having a daughter as well, and my work is pretty crazy. So I've slowed down. I don't fish nearly. I used to fish every weekend. I'm not quite there yet. We did fish. Me and Jared fished this past week. We fished Saturday. It was cold as crap, 20 degrees. Boats freezing the trailers and everything under the sun breaking. It seems like all the boats had issues in the morning between batteries and trim units, and my seals on my hydraulic, my Sea Star, were leaking. It's just yeah. So maintenance, I got to do that. So that's some off season, mid season for me. This would be light season. It's not necessarily off season for me, but it is light season. So I do try to do all the prepping and all the tackle prep and boat prep and all that stuff. I try to accomplish that in the wintertime. That's kind of what I do when I can.
It's frustrating though, because if you want to fish all year, it does put you at this pinch where you don't have time to actually reorganize versus the people that do go deer hunting and just stop for a couple months, where you then could, because you're mentally out of it, you can just reorganize, clean slate it, get everything prepped for the next year. And trust me, and especially with, I guess, my situation, because I was in a kayak this year too, splitting time, and it was annoying as shit. And this year I was just flying by the seat of my pants, having my boat tackle and the kayak tackle and trying to have separate crap. So I wasn't always going to the boat, which was a freaking nightmare. I'm going to figure that out for next year.
That's my problem too, because I've got a bass boat. So I'm always swapping, trying to figure out my load between my Bass Cat and my John boat, because I don't go out of my John boat as much as I used to, but when I go, like, how do I compress an entire 20-foot bass boat into a 14-foot John boat? Which you'll be surprised, my 14-foot John boat is pretty nice. So it does have a lot of storage and it will hold it all, but then it just becomes like, why am I doing this? Then, too much tackle can be a bad thing.
That is not true.
Yes, and it is, like, it's great to have options, but it's not great. Like, I don't know. I was just telling Jared the other day, like, I feel like not as competent or as confident an angler as I used to, because I didn't have as many options. And so I just made it work. Now I just got too many options. And I think that can hurt you sometimes. I'm trying to figure out how to whittle some of this stuff down, but then the next day I become brain dead and I buy more tackles. So, I just keep kicking the can down the road.
But sometimes, really purging into it. I mean, for me, I got into it with the Buka shad earlier this year, learning that, and then I just bought the Fish Everything, the big old donks, the 12-inchers, which is absolutely. I got the 12-inch ones because there's this Phil guy that I was with earlier in the year, and he caught 38 pounds for his best 5 on this fucking thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be like Phil. And I realized there's not a lot of fish that can eat this thing. I also don't have the patience.
Wait, do I got to look around? I might have a Fish Everything in here. Let me see what I got in here. I feel like I had one in here. I got my little one. Actually, they sold me a blank. I had my buddy back home paint it. It's a little one. I think that's a 7, maybe.
That might be the 7.
Yeah, I think that's a 7. But that little thing right there,
candy.
Yeah, it gets bit for sure. I feel like I have a 10 though. I know I have.
And these sizes are very much. I think again, where I fish, it's very
OG, old.
Oh wow!
The original. That thing gets bit too.
Which
time? This is the time to dream about a glide bait bite.
Which one did you spend the most on?
I spent $325 on an 86 baits Andromeda.
Good God.
Yeah. And worth every penny because that thing is monster. I've got it in the truck outside, but it draws crazy. Like I think it's a 10. I think it's considered a 10. It might be an 11-inch bait, but it's really tall top to bottom and it's extremely heavy. It's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 ounces. Don't quote me on that, but it's a big one. But it's got some crazy. I mean, it glides a couple feet left and right, easy. I think that's my biggest purchase to date. I hope my wife doesn't watch this.
No, I know mine doesn't.
Not 325.
Let's see.
I mean,
Paul Bladders says definitely have to have separate tackle. I keep a fully stocked co-angler bag if I go fishing with a buddy. Also, the host of Bass and Beer Radio on Friday nights. Go check him out. Yeah, that's something I need to. I need to get better with all this.
That was always my problem as a co-angler, man. Like I always carried too much tackle as a co-angler, and they would always rag on me. Look, I drew Scott Martin one time, and look, Scott's a great guy. He's really nice, but he grabbed my tackle bag off the dock in the morning. He was like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Why are you bringing this?" But he like totally judged me right from the jump because I had brought too much tackle. I got more than one stare. But, like I told them, I'm like, man, you travel across the country and throw it all in a bag and show up here and try to compete to win,
Mm-hmm.
And look, it's hard. It's not easy to win them opens and stuff, especially as a co-angler. And you never know what you're going to do. So I definitely can sympathize with trying to navigate this into a bag and be competitive. It's not easy.
Especially walk us through. Like, what is the mad scientist process for what's behind you right now?
Man, I've got a lot of stuff. Like, so I don't know if so this is just all this stuff behind me is just kind of stuff that I told you this is stuff like I found one of these on my dash laying up on my pickup truck earlier. My problem is that, a lot of I typically, my core storage tackle system is 3,700 double deeps. I do throw some singles in there, but I throw 3,700s. That's pretty much how I do it. And they're waterproof. They work pretty good. That's like what I carry in the boat. And then I backfill a lot of that with some of these bigger totes and stuff. Like I'll carry, like this is my hoard buy, right? So if I... like the classics, I'll keep, this is what I keep for my backup, and then I'll backfill that into like what I was showing you off camera earlier, these things right here. So this is what would actually go in the boat versus, I have these big giant clear plastic tubs, like all over my house and garage and stuff, and my wife hates it. But those are all of like, if I go traveling on the road, like I'm super paranoid. So like when I fish the opens or if I'm traveling and going to Florida, like, I'm not just carrying this. I'm carrying all of it, right? So I pack the backups or whatever because you never know what color they might bite or what, you know how it goes. You're a turbo fisherman, right? So that's like my kind of system. And then I end up going and buying a bunch of crap throughout the year at every tackle store I go to. And then I online, impulse buy stuff at 1 a.m. on Tackle Warehouse or, shit that I just don't need. And then I end up with all this stuff, which ends up being plastic bags or brown paper bag when I walk out of a tackle store that then every time I walk to the next tackle store and purchase the next batch of jackhammers or whatever it may be, that goes into this bag. And then eventually I get to a point where the bag rips. And then I have to figure out what am I going to do with all the stuff. And so this has happened to me like 4 times this year. And so now we've culminated in all the bags have ripped. I've got cardboard boxes that are now waterlogged and damp from being in the boat. So now I've got all this stuff that I have to figure out, do I actually have a use for? How do I fill it into my 3700s? Does it get backfilled over here? Does any of this even serve a purpose? Like, of course it does. Like, I've got all my trebles and stuff. But then, like, for my trebles, like, I have a treble box. But then I keep, like, the whole... that's not supposed to be in there, but all those are like trebles, right? So I just keep all trebles in the box of 8s, 6s, 4s, you name it, and then all that stuff. And then, so this is going to go in the boat. It's too much, right? So I'm trying to figure out, some of it's core component stuff that you actually need, and then some of it is just absolutely unnecessary.
I mean, I don't think any of it's unnecessary because there's a time and place. You'll buy shit. They'd be like,
I've certainly bought a lot of stuff where I ended up like, a year down the road, pull it out and end up catching them on it. So I can't say it's all a bad thing, but definitely it gets overwhelming when, I used to just throw like 3 things and catch the absolute fire out of them. And I still do pretty well, but I think sometimes it clutters the mind. So I'm trying to find the fine line of sticking to what I know, expanding a little bit, but not expanding so much that I lose my roots and lose, what I came from. And maybe I'm just trying to figure out some of this stuff is more like testers. Like the other day, like I'm getting better with the old scope out there. So I found me a little hand tied something from around the house that I might daub at them, So just random stuff that I buy, hover rig and some giant stuff.
Jesus Christ. Wait, hold something up for some comparison because that looks like an OJ-sized dong.
No.
I don't like that. That thing looks like it's 10 inches.
What is this? This is 6 cents. This is a flush. I think I forget what it is. But it's a good size bait. Like
Dear God. It's like you're jiggling for some tarpon or striper.
Look, this thing gets bit too. I'm telling you, I whacked them this year on it. They eat it too. But it's got the hover,
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is like terminal tackle. I gotta switch boxes. How many boxes do you have for terminal? Like, how do you break it down? Do you break it down by EWG?
My terminal tackle has evolved a lot over the years. I started with like regular 3,700 non-waterproof loose hooks, trash, not good. 3,700 waterproof loose hooks, trash. Went to a terminal box, Bass Mafia, trash. So now I just am super paranoid about hook points and everything. So my current terminal tackle system, subject to change, although I do got one of those BKK. Have you seen those BKK systems that they came out with this year?
I don't think so.
I'll show you. I don't have it with me, but when I get one, you just got to look it up. That's something new I'm really excited for. But I'll show you what my current, because I'm actually... What you can't see off camera right in front of me is I'm sorting rubber bands and stuff right now of all my different jig heads and stuff for my minnow pinging, for my drift fries. But my current terminal tackle setup is, so this is kind of my current setup. I'm doing, I keep everything in packs, and then I try to, it's somewhat organized, but I try to do everything by type and then size. So obviously bigger straight shank, offset worm hooks, 4s, 5s, 3s, straight shanks over here. And then, I've got drop shot weights mixed in here, tungsten jig heads, a lot of wacky hooks down low, bobber stops, all my main flipping hooks that I flip with. I'm a Hayabusa cat. That's what I do. Drop shot hooks also, I run their stuff. Wobble heads, but I try to keep everything in the same pack. So A, I know what it is, and B, it just, to me, probably in my head, but it keeps hook points not banging around. There's no risk of anything. And when I pick it up out of the pack, typically it's exactly what I say it is. So then I'm going to pick them up off camera and just kind of fill them back in and create slots. Not perfect, certainly subject to change. But I'm doing offsets, offset wide gaps, and then straight shank, and then big weights. I got a couple of 1 and 2 ounces, so just in case I go up north, or down south.
So you put your big weights in there too?
I got a little bit. I don't have my full selection. Like I have a full, like one of these right here. These size ones, I have a full punching one of these that I keep it
Jesus
out.
Christ.
It typically comes out like it's got 1 and 2 ounce weights, punch skirts. It's full of like BB crickets and like a couple of other like punching things that I know work, and that's like my punch box, and it just goes in there. So that's, but it's so specialized. I don't punch that much. We don't have to do it a ton down here, but I do when I go south or whenever I travel, or if I go up to like Upper Bay, shit like that. Definitely got to have the punch box with you. But this is like my typical for around here. Texas rigging, drop shot, and I can cover 99% of it with this box right here. And then I backfill this box. But this box is only good for like my regular terminal tackle. It's not going to cover all of my jig heads and stuff. Like I have a whole.
I was gonna say, okay.
I basically then have one of those size boxes that I create for just a minnow pinging box, and it's going to have drift fries and juggles and just full of hover rigs and just you name it, all that stuff. And then I've been experimenting. That's what I've been trying to do, is trying to do core component tackle like this, and then I kind of create some of those specialty boxes to help me,
because I do drop shot Nika rig box, jig head box, and then like core hook box is kind of like how I do it.
Yeah.
Since I feel like the techniques are pretty similar, we got some fun. So Mike Gills says, ask him about his John Boat organization.
Yeah. So my John Boat organization the technique is called overfloweth. Okay. So my John Boat at one point was an extremely fast John Boat. And then between John Boat modifications and me just absolutely acquiring a boatload of tackle over the years, I just bring it all. I can't ever just like, I'm taking one boat. It's just one and one. I just take all the stuff out of one boat, put it into another. And so then, but it's paid off. I've caught a lot of big bags by like thinking, I actually do have that. Let me dig around in the front panel of the boat, pull out some random color something, and it works. So John Boat organization, it's all up here though. It's all about like, you got to organize for who you are, right? So my organization plan is absolutely ridiculous, and it only works for me because I know where everything's at, but nothing's labeled. There's not shit wrote on any of these boxes. Like a true person would broke out the label machine and all. Nah, I'm not doing all that, because I end up, this is in my head, like throughout the season, sometimes I'll talk myself into like, I'm going to downsize. So I'm like, let me just create one go box. And then I'll end up taking one 3700, and I've got jigs and crankbaits and jerk baits and top waters, and I'm throwing everything in for one box. And then that one box just becomes a hybrid. And then that stuff never goes back into the box it was originally pulled out of. And then you end up with some of these boxes behind me, which are just a myriad of crap, which like yesterday or Saturday, I was catching them. I have two of these special liplesses, and I was catching them really good on one, and I broke it off, and my partner was like, all right, where's it at? And I'm like, shit, I had to like sit there and just do calculus in my head for a second. And I was like, 4 boxes down, 2 over, first bin in the front. And it's like buried under like 4 square bills, a jerk bait, and like some top waters and stuff. And it's just sitting down there. He's like, there it is. And he hands it to me, and I tie it on and keep catching them, But like, that doesn't work for most people. And I probably would have never found that on 99 out of 100 tries. So more often than not, like that, you just like, shit, I don't have any more. And then you just never catch them. So it's important. I try to do this type of stuff and reorganize this, open all these boxes up and take them out, put them where they're supposed to be. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I've got, crankbaits is such a huge category. Like I've got like 6 of these back here, just crankbaits, of different types. I got 3 different square bill boxes back here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a box of crankbaits here that I just found that I gotta be going through. The thing is, like, I have so much crap from high school and college from my parents' house. Like, I could go there into their garage and be like, "Oh, here's a box I forgot about when I moved out."
Absolutely, my mom's garage is absolutely loaded with stuff. 100%. Like you go over there right now, and it's just absolutely pegboard. I got a pegboard in there and everything. Like it's just loaded down with stuff. I just go over there, like, "Ooh, I need some jigs," and I'll just backfill, pull them off. I got
Paul Bladders. Let's see, I'm thinking about getting the BKK deal. It just doesn't work with my current boat storage. And then we got this guy called High Pole Guide Service. He says, "What is Chaz rate to organize tackle and boat?" Asking for a friend.
Ooh,
there you go.
That I will do it for free. Just so I could see how y'all organize tackle. How about that?
And we got over on Instagram, we got Josh Torres 2886 overfloweth, me thinketh I liketh. Yeah, keeps them in the pocket mostly. Dude, absolutely. Stop saying bladders.
Oh, it's bladders. No, man, you're dang, not bladders. Look, I found.
Okay, last one, and then we'll be up to date. I keep the silica gel packs. Ooh, that's a good one. That's
actually a good idea. I've done
package.
that before.
Toss someone. Interesting.
I've done that before because I get a lot of those because I'm in logistics. So I get a lot of those moisture absorbing packets that I do. I found this in one of my bins. This is if anyone's ever seen that box. It's been a while since anyone's seen that brand. So
holy crap!
It's an Excalibur in the pack that I found. I can't even remember what store I found this in, but
dude, that's old school.
That's the Excalibur's good stuff, man.
Dude, and that's the other thing I want to touch on today is you don't have to just do like the whole tackle warehouse deal, Jake's Bait and Tackle. You can also do like Facebook or eBay. I got this off Facebook. It is for $50. This is all Kitex. Granted, there's a couple of reels in there that I tossed in there, but for $50, I got a ton of packs of Kitex just because I was like not working and scrolling Facebook. Like you can definitely find some great deals
out there.
online.
I try to I actually don't shop online like I used to. I had a crazy addiction with Tackle Warehouse. I mean, crazy addiction in my early and late 20s. I've since gotten really good about tackle. And I say that, and you can see this vent right here looks crazy, but it's not as bad as when I was in my early 20s. I used to be really bad. So now I try to, if I do buy anything, I try to shop local. I got a few shops around the house, Feel the Pain, Bait and Tackle. I try to always shop there if I can. Spend my money local just because Tackle Warehouse has gotten enough from me over the years, and I feel like they're getting worse and worse. No offense, Tackle Warehouse, I'm just being honest. But yeah, it's just crazy how they keep coming out with so much stuff. Like I got these the other day. I don't know if anybody ever seen those. So,
ooh. Explain them. What are they?
So I don't know. So no light bait. They look great. Okay, so they're basically the saltwater. One of the saltwater shops around here. They're kind of. It seems to me like they're more marketed towards saltwater, but I mean 100% know that they'll. This is actually what's it? It recommends a 10-aught BKK hook. So you know, whatever they might be affiliated. I don't know how that works, but it looks good. You know, and you know how it is, man. If it looks great, you got to buy it. Plus, we have some great partners in some of the trails I fish. Mark DiMarzio with Alpha Elite Tackle. Give him a shout out. He's always got the best JDM stuff ever. So, like, he's always got solid, like, the best anything and everything you can think of. JDM. Mark either has it or can acquire it and knows somebody who has it. Like, he's got leader. I was doing chatterbaits last night. Like we talked about this. I was already doing a tackle organization video last night. It was way worse last night. I had like 30 jackhammers and all kinds of stuff that I was unpackaging and repacking into my jackhammer box, which I worked really hard on last night to make very pretty and proper. I got everything under the sun. I got some really fancy JDM ones in there that non-jackhammers.
Do you organize by weight or color?
I try to organize by color and weight if I can. But man, like, check that little guy out. Ooh.
Oh my God. Did you add that?
No, that's not a jackhammer. That's not an evergreen or a chatterbait. That's some Japanese stuff. I don't want to say the brand because I don't want it to get out.
That looks like the designer spent way too much time at a gay pride convention. That color is very vibrant.
That's the coleslaw. Well, let me scale it back. I'll give you something a little less flamboyant. How about that? So,
that looks a little bit better.
Dude,
huh?
It looks good. It's gonna work.
Does that also function as a weed guard?
Yes, it does.
Interesting. Is that a half ounce or is that
that one right there is a half? It's
a half.
That's a brake blade.
God, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and then hold on. Few of the people who know.
That's crazy.
Very underrated.
How many years until chatterbaits will be becoming like the old balsa wood crankbaits where you're hunting on eBay for those models that aren't made anymore?
Hopefully not ever. Because I do not like buying stuff like that. I don't know. Like there is definitely some cultish part of like, some of the Zoom, like the Ed Chamber stuff, like sitting off camera. Also found this on my dash.
Ooh.
Another whack. What year is this one? This is a hickey from 2018. The thing is pretty. All right,
And we're gonna look at hook removal. Oh God, that's a pretty color.
Yeah, that purple iridescence, man, that thing looks good.
Mm.
Yeah, that's actually, it's prime time for that right now. But yeah, I mean, tackle's just, it's a never-ending process. I feel like I think every angler that's really serious about it struggles with it, because I feel like we all end up getting the tackle bug eventually, and then we just keep buying and buying and buying, and eventually you will all end up like this if you're not already, because that's eventually what happens. You just keep buying stuff because you think it's going to help you, and then maybe some of it does, but I think 50% of it just doesn't. It's just,
the problem is it's when the 1% time happens where, I mean, like
they're actually blowing up schooling, and you're like, I bought the helicopter minnow from 07 and here it is.
Yeah.
You throw it out there and they eat it. Like
the most, it will ruin an angler when you are in that moment at that one point in time where you have a bait no one else is throwing and you call your shot and you're like, okay, so what I need to do is spend $100,000 at Tackle Warehouse and just keep doing this.
Look, I do that. Okay. 100%. And I hoard buy to prevent other people from having it. 100%. Like when you used to, like back in, let's say 2014 to 2020, if you saw some shit, you're like, it used to say 10 plus on Tackle Warehouse. Now it says 0 on stock. That was me. I came in and would clear pegs.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy 10, 15 of things at a time just because I'm like, I don't want anyone to have it. Same deal. Like my swim bait over there that I really like. I don't like people having it. I don't like people. I don't like people buying it. So I would just go in and, like, knowing that I have 400 blister packs at the house, like, I'm not kidding. These ones right here, I've got blister packs like in my kitchen sink, like underneath my kitchen sink of these things on the right compartment of like extras. My house smells like squid. Okay. I have a lot of them. But I do it because A, I feel like I got to have them, and B, I don't want anyone else to have them. So I just go in. If I see 5 on a peg when I walk in, I typically buy 5 knowing I don't need the 5, but maybe one day I will. That's the hoard buy in me.
I mean, that's why I like these things here. Like, I mean, I live in smallmouth country and I bought a hentai crab, but on places like Smith Mountain Lake and Lake Ann, I hear like this shit. I know this is going to work on the Potomac at that time of year, but
I think it's going to work in a lot of places. The wacky rig thing, it's going to work.
Oh my God. I don't know what it is with tentacles, but it's like, that's what's in right now is tentacles on things.
Tentacles. I'm looking around for something cool that might be off.
I got this.
I don't have anything really cool.
This is a summertime bait. This is going to be the Jackal needle bug. It is actually a topwater bait. And you rig it on a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook. And it actually has a rattle and a float in it. And so when you cast this fucking thing out, it just sits on the water and you pull it and all these legs wiggle. I don't think it'll be great for largemouth, but smallmouth on the rivers, dude, this thing is going to freaking smoke them.
Drifted from current seams and stuff.
Oh my God.
I could 100% see that working.
And I'm trying these hog farmers out for, I haven't tried these hog farmers out yet.
Stop it. Put it down.
Oh.
Hold on. It's all right. They're not a secret anymore. 3 years ago, I'd have freaked out if you'd have showed that. But now,
oh my God.
That's like, so this is the current one, and then I have another backfill, case behind me that I backfill. But yeah, I mean, loose ones.
The Yum Money one is pretty good too, actually, as a backup. I just don't like that some of these colors. It's just so crazy how each company can have the same color and they look different. That makes no sense.
This one right here is absolute fire.
That's a good color.
I've won
That's a really good color.
Thousands and thousands of dollars on that. It is a great, 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 great bait. I'm sure that you already know what to throw it on. But if you don't, I'm not gonna say it.
Have you tried those Lindsay? Is it called the Queen's Tackle?
What's that?
The Queen's Tackle, retarded looking head.
The sonar, the pink, the head that pings really good.
Yeah,
I actually have not tried that head. I've heard good things about Queen's, like the whole brand. I've heard good things about, so I'd be interested in trying it. Looks like something like a drift fry would be good for. I don't know how about you, but this is how I always, like, I buy, like I said, I never buy one of anything. I always have to buy minimum 2, but sometimes 4 or 5, just because you never know. But then, like on my ball head jigs and stuff, I'll typically, for when I'm doing like one of those specialty boxes, if I'm not going to do like a 3700 deep and I'm going to do one of those, I'll typically,
that's what I do too.
Yeah, I typically, like, same thing for all my plastics and stuff. If I have bulk, I just keep them together like that with rubber bands, and it kind of makes things a little more manageable. Makes me feel organized, even though I'm not. Like I bought a bunch of swim jigs, a bunch of dirty swim jigs, and I was organizing those yesterday evening. Oh yeah.
That's basically, sadly, all I throw. There's a nasty addiction.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad thing to admit.
One thing I did find in this box I thought was like an old Bastrix. Do you remember when these things were hot?
Yeah, I do. That was like at the early onset of my career. That was like out west. They were fire. They started out west and they moved out here. When Skeet was catching them on it around here too. Like
Steve Kennedy.
Yeah. Top Shelf was a good one. I don't know if you ever thrown Top Shelf swim baits. They're really good.
Osprey.
Osprey's Tournament Talon's really good. But for me, the ultimate for me is definitely I throw a Scottsboro, man. I catch the crap out of Scottsboro.
Scottsboro is really good too. Dude, that whole like Mega Bass thing got blown the fuck up. I feel like there's 38 copies of that stupid bait now.
And I never really got on the mag draft scene, so to speak. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the swim jig box, I was going to pull it out. Look at one thing. Shout out to the Potomac.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
If you know, you know.
What's your favorite trailer? Well, what's your favorite trailer you can talk about?
None of them. No, I don't know. It just depends. Like I do like a swim bait trailer on the back of those things.
Okay, you're a swim bait guy. Okay.
I do like a swim bait on the back of it. If I'm fishing it down, which I do a lot now, I fish a swim jig down a lot now. But I also still fish it up, and in which case I'm throwing Z-Crawl Jr. is probably one of my favorite. I throw a regular Zoom chunk, super chunk a lot too, swimming a jig. So those would probably be my 2 for up high swimming it, which I would say I probably do 50-50 up high and 50 down low.
When you're fishing low, are you going with a lighter head and slowing down, or are you going heavier and just smashing through?
Depends on the situation and where I'm fishing, but I a lot of times am throwing a heavy head. I throw a half ounce a lot.
Interesting.
I throw a half, even on the James and the Chick, I throw a half, or on the Potomac, I've thrown a half a lot just so I can bust through.
You see, I like to go the other way and go as light as I can get away with. So when I pop free, it doesn't jolt as hard, and I can pendulum it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and it just depends. Sometimes sometimes I'll go quarter, and sometimes I'll go 3/8. But I've also had a lot of times, especially in the summertime, where I'm throwing a half with a full size trailer, even in like 2 foot, and just it's fat, 7-1, just clunking it through. And a lot of times they eat it and set the hook on themselves. Me just reeling it. I've caught a lot like that. So it just depends. I think it varies. I would say when I first started a couple of years ago, I was catching them really good on the half the whole year. This year, I'd say I caught more on a 3/8 this year than I did a half. but it just depends. I still caught some, especially shad profile seems to be a half more than.
Yeah, I fish more bluegill type of deal. Where I want that thing to be a little bit. I just personally think like bluegill bite, a crappie bite, they're not generally afraid of bass, and so they're not generally going to be racing at 100 miles an hour versus like a shad. They're going to be meandering, and then you hit something, and then that's when you're going to get that reaction.
Yeah, and it's just a sneaky. That's one of my favorite ways. I've really grown fond of it over the last 2 years probably, and caught some really big fish doing it. And it's just, I kind of kick myself for not realizing how good it was in the beginning, especially like springtime and certain areas, certain conditions. When you read certain conditions, now I know I'm wired to like, all right, I got to throw that. But now, back then, I would just try to force other power things, or I would go opposite and try to slow way down, which isn't the right thing to do sometimes either in certain conditions. So it's just such a weapon if you know how to use it and when to use it and when not to use it.
It's hard though when you have the chatterbait, the crankbait, the spinnerbait. Like it's just you can't fish everything, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it's all in between the ears, man. Like you just and you know, you could go down the bank throwing that and then come back down the bank behind somebody else. You just don't know. Like it's all hypothesis. You know, like we're all just guessing. One of us might be right, and then we may catch a fish. And then most people overanalyze it and they catch it and they're like, oh, he was supposed to be here because it's the waning, waxing moon. And it's, you know, it's the conditions are like, and I don't put too much thought. I definitely generalize, but I don't get hung up on any one fish catch. Like, what is the old saying? Like what's Ike always say? And Kevin, they used to always say like one is,
fish the moment. Statute of limitations.
No, it's more off like it's not really a pattern, or I don't make too much of it until I catch 3 or 4 of them that way.
Yeah.
You know, and some guys I know that are will be like, I'm not catching them after 15 minutes. I got to change colors or some shit. I'm never going to do that. Like I'm never even going to change colors more often than not. If I start with the color, that's normally the color I'm going to use. And it's typically because I'm too lazy to change, but I really don't think that it's color more often than not. Like I think it plays, but I think color is always going to be secondary to presentation is everything. Like if you don't present the bait to the bass at the right possible second moment, direction, don't splash. You know what I mean? Like if you don't present it to them, they're not going to bite it. It's not like I land it 5 feet away, 10 feet, 20 feet away, and the fish is like, oh crap, did you hear that? It's not white. I'm going over there, it's green pumpkin, and it swims over there and eats it. Like it's more often than not, it's presentation.
But part of the presentation is like, I mean, we're gonna go way down the autism spectrum here. But it's like but the weight, like at the Butch Ward tournament, like you could tell if a quarter was on heads or tails in 20 feet of water, just gin clear. And you could see the smallmouth like 100 feet away. You throw your drop shot out there and they heard that splash, gone. All the big ones are gone. You had to literally throw a weightless bait in 20 feet of water and let it slowly get down to them, and they would come up and eat it. Otherwise, they were like, I'm out.
Terrible. That sounds so
miserable.
Bad.
It was shit. It was terrible. I hated it. I was throwing gay.
Fun. No, but it's part of fishing, right? And so,
but the weight, right? Like the splash, the hit. Like, okay, so you have to adjust the weight, how it gets down to them. Like that happens. I've heard of that happens on Kerr too when they get really spooky. So
there's always there's always going to be that. There's always going to be situations where you have to know that stuff. I think that stuff's super important, and I certainly factor some of that in, especially out deep. Like we're all with the live scope and things we're doing now. It's just it's different than what it used to be. Like. Before it, you know, give me a jig, a spinnerbait, a crankbait, a chatterbait, and a topwater, and I can figure it out in almost every lake in America, pretty much. Now, when we go off the bank, that's something different. But even 90% of the time, you can go up on the bank and be competent. Now, I'm not going to say you'll win, because that would be outlandish of me to think, especially in the common era with live scope, which I can do that too. I don't have no problem doing live scope, but I think it just the bass fishing as a whole is a little convoluted, and you see like people aren't even buying crankbaits anymore. People aren't even buying the tackle. They're only buying ball head jigs and damn crush sitting booch minnows. It's ridiculous.
But that's tournaments aren't held at the right time of year. Because if you had the Bassmaster Classic on the James, it's probably not going to be one with a dinky minnow. It'll probably.
But
be
it
one
could
with a
if Jacob
crankbait.
Wheeler was in it, like just because he somehow figures it out. But I don't know. I'm not hating. I think it's a great technology. I think it's cool. I think it's definitely changed the way we fish, and it's changing the way young anglers come into the game and fish. Like, I mean,
it makes winter fishing fun.
Yeah, guys are skipping the whole like I grind it out with the jig and crankbait phase and learning how to start dirt shallow and then work out deep. Like, I don't know. I guess everyone's different. Some people start deep and then eventually go shallow, but I don't ever want to be the angler that only fishes shallow or only fishes deep. I want to be able to do everything. I want to be able to fish and have fun and compete and not be pigeonholed and locked into one way to fish. But at the same time, I don't want to be like so far down the rabbit hole, either left or right, that I can't see with a sense of reason or when to pull the trolling motor and say, I'm not doing this crap anymore. I'm out over here over 80 feet and I'm throwing it 16-inch spotted bass. I need to stop. Go to the
I agree.
You know, like there has to be a certain point where now if I go out deep and I drop on a couple of 6-pounders and they just and open up, like, yeah, I'm going to stay out there and stick with it. Or if, you know, like I'm not going to speculate, but I'm just going to, I saw our friend Matt did really well this weekend up at Anna, right? He probably went out there and did his thing, you know, and if I'm, you know, it's just two different ways of fishing. And could you go on the bank and catch those fish right now? There's probably some, but you got to travel a long distance to get 5 like that, you know.
It's hard.
In winter, yeah, December, you can go up shallow in the James and weigh 24 pounds. There was 2 24-pound bags weighed in on Saturday on the Chickahominy in two different tournaments on the same day. And it was 20 degrees outside. So it just depends. Like you can fish shallow. I guess it all depends on where you come from. If you go to Smith Mountain, probably not going to catch 25 pounds up on the bank at Smith Mountain right now. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm still trying to adapt to that super offshore deep fishing thing. Like deep is relative to me. I catch them out of 20, 25 feet is probably about the deepest I'm going to ever catch them. You know, I don't smallmouth fish. I'm not fishing the Great Lakes and I don't really spend a particular amount of time up on Smith Mountain because it's so dang far away from me.
It is interesting because where you grow up really does influence in your DNA what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And going through and Paul says there, it's all that will sell until something else gets popular. Yeah, like whatever's hot right now.
What else? So what I wonder though, we've been on the jighead ping minnow craze for a couple years now. I don't see anything that's going to come out and reinvent the wheel here with regards to new baits or anything, like unless
I do, but I'll get shot if I say it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'm not outward thinking enough to probably think of a new broad spectrum category of lure or something that might come along and change the game. But
it depends on tournament directors. If you keep having a Toledo Bend in February, the fucking LiveScope made winter fishing fun for so many lakes.
It does make it fun. I'm not gonna lie. But we were just talking about this off camera too. I'm gonna give some free exposure, Saxton, if you're out there.
There you go.
It is that time of the year right now.
One mortgage payment right there, baby.
You know. These things are sweet though.
Ricky Falk said there was a 9-pound bass caught on the James this past weekend. Good God.
Yes, there was. There was a 9 in the cat. I was up there. I didn't fish that tournament. I fished the Winter Series tournament. They had a 7-pounder. The people who won our tournament had a 7-pounder. They had 24 something. There was a 9 something weighed in the cat. And then my buddy Noah, shout out Noah if you're listening to this, caught a 1069 out of the Nottoway Chowan River this weekend on Saturday as well.
Really?
Yep. The big fish are biting this time of the year. The best time.
Oh, it's the best time. Whether you're a largemouth guy, smallmouth guy.
I would love to get me one of them 9 and 10 pound bites. It's been a while. I forgot what it feels like.
Dude, you got so many freaking lakes near you, especially those Norfolk lakes that probably are going to start popping off here soon.
They're already popping off. I've been trying to show restraint and not go out there lately because the last time to last time I went out there, I caught an 8-pounder. So they're out there for sure.
Let's see. We got Everett Garrett says, what's your favorite spot to fish in the winter? Body of water is what he means.
For me, this is actually really hard. So favorite probably one of these Norfolk lakes right around the house throwing a jerkbait, just because I just really love to do that. But a very close second would be the James / Chickahominy Rivers, because I really like fishing up there in the wintertime. I had a lot of fun this Saturday. We didn't catch a big weight. We had just under 14 pounds, but we had a really good time. You get to fish, you get to power fish in the winter. On James, it's fun. I really like fishing the James.
Yeah, for me, it probably is going to be Everett. It's going to be smallmouth and crappie. I get really addicted to catching crappie now that I have scope. I realize it's just fun. I can just go out there and stick them all.
I got to stay away from the crappie because I feel like I would get the bug real bad. And
dude, the bug is bad.
Yeah, I know. And I've seen them. Look, I've caught a lot of big crappie fishing for bass with a jerkbait. I've caught some big citation crappie that I'm like, throwing back. But then I think about it, I'm like, guys really are out here in the freezing cold just like me today trying to catch that fish right there. So and on light line especially, and snatching them.
You're smoking on 15-pound test.
Yeah.
12.
Come here, catching dinner plates. I love it. They're aggressive. They eat a jerkbait really good in the wintertime. Crappie do.
Oh God, yeah.
Especially like at Kerr too. I've caught several the last few trips I went to Kerr on a jerkbait. I found a +1 over here somewhere that was laying. It was also on the dash with my phony. I also found this.
Look at you with a +1. Oh my God, you got a Ciebla.
This is the OG original Sebile too. This one I've blasted some Smith Lake bass, Lewis Smith Lake down in Alabama. I've smoked some spotted bass over 180 foot of water on one of this. Like big time. But I was I had a +1. Oh, the Maverick. Look at me. I just got shit everywhere. I got on the stupid craze. I got me one of the poser baits. What do they call that?
It's basically
It's a poser bait. Sorry, Jackal Riser, if you heard this or if you're watching this. Ode to the original. That's a fake one. But I've also been playing around with a lot of jerkbaits too. The Rapala Maverick. Been playing around with that one. Really like this jerkbait. It's hard to stray from the megabass, but I have the last couple of years I've strayed away just because most of the people that I'm competing against around here are throwing the megabass, so I'm trying to show them something a little different. And I will say, can vouch for this. It is a good jerkbait.
This is the Mega Bass. I think it's the 90 BFS. Dude, when they're on, this is the
fishing?
BFS.
You fishing for trout with that?
When they get on the thread fin, the baby thread fin, I actually started to smoke them when they got on that super tiny shit.
I don't know if you
get the real size.
The Kanata.
Oh,
Kanata is a really good one. Or I'm sorry, not a Kanata. This is the Edo Shiner. Kidding. I almost committed blasphemy. The Kanata is the giant one, which I also have. But
you fish that on 10 or 12?
I throw everything. I throw all my jerkbaits pretty much on 12. I haven't really felt the need to go down to 10. I think if you were at Smith Mountain maybe, or a really clear smallmouth body of water, I could see going down to 10. But where I'm at 12 and big fish, standing timber, and a lot of this stuff, I can barely land some of them on 12. So, you already got to put the horses on them.
Well, you're talking to the right man, Everett. Can you catch winter fish without any sonar?
Yeah, 100%. You do not need sonar to catch. Like, is it cool to look at them? Yes, but I was catching in a lot of fish for decades prior to any 2D on my boat or anything like that. You do not need that. All you need to do is determine A, how do you want to fish this winter? B, where do you live at and what's close to you? And then how can you make it applicable? I don't know where he lives, but if you're fishing a lake, typically channel swings, bluff ends, long tapering points, any kind of deep water verticality with hard bottom nearby, you can pretty much catch it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, more often than not. And for me, like I was saying earlier, I was thinking about it. Like, take the minnow and the A rig and put them in their own category, because I think they're a crucial part of winter fishing. The minnow and the A rig, definitely a core component. We're never going to wave those off, and you always need to have both of those available. But I think a jig is probably the number one slept on, underrated lure in the wintertime, and probably doesn't get enough love because of its being slow, right? But it is probably downright one of the most effective big fish catchers there is. I fished a couple weekends ago on the Chowan and Nottoway rivers down here by my house, and I think I didn't catch any big weights, but man, I caught so many for a wintertime trip. I think I caught 25. I think I caught 10 or 12 cranking, and I caught at least 10 or 12 or more on a jig. And I think that's a crankbait, a jig, and a spinnerbait, and like an actual jerkbait are probably like the four things that I could do the most damage with in the winter. And I don't need no sonar, no forward facing, nothing. All I need to be able to do is see the bank and then kind of look at the bank and picture how I think the bank comes out off the bank, and then throw a jig around, drag it until I feel something hard. And typically, you know, you find a piece of wood or something nearby, a handle swing or a little hump or a drop. You don't need a whole lot this time of the year. And that's how I started before I ever got any of the fancy technology. And it did me well and still does to this day. I still find a lot of stuff with a jig or even a Carolina rig. It makes me want to throw up saying that word, but still, like Jared and I both hate a Carolina rig, but we always keep one in the boat because it is pan sonar. Like before all that crap, that is the original forward facing sonar, the old ball and chain is. You throw that thing out there with a 3/4 ounce weight and drag it around on the bottom, wherever you're at, you can do a whole lot of bottom, you know, you can cover a lot of ground and catch a lot of really big fish that way too.
Yeah, and that's my autism will kick in with your question there, boss. But I'll say the first bait is a swim bait on a head, or if you can't afford it, get an American trash fish.
Ooh.
You can I absolutely adore fishing these things because you cast it out and just drag it on the bottom. And I'm telling you, like when you come up over a lip and let that thing slide off the thing, you'll feel a tick and just set and reel, because it's usually a freaking monster that they will shark a swim bait. Because like back in the day when we fished college tournaments, you would take an underspin that I just had in my hand, an underspin or just a regular swim bait head, because A-rigs weren't invented yet, and you were just almost bottom bumping them, and those fish would just shark it, and you come up over a lip and they would just run right into it. Or that thing right there.
That's me right there for sure. +1, you can get a lot of damage done with that all over the country, from here to Toledo Bend and back, up north, anywhere it's not iced out. I can catch them anywhere, any lake, any body of water, any river in the country. You could catch them right now. Put money on it. If you go anywhere in the country and launch, pick one of these up and throw it, you will catch them. Like,
he says, Ross Hamilton, congrats on your win yesterday with Mick Chicken on the res. And then we have Tyler again, no shame to my C-Rig game. No God bless you, sir.
You know,
Everett again. Go for it.
It's great. The C-Rig is great, dude. Like, I used to hate on it so much, but it's just a pain in the butt more often than not, because I just hate having to rig them. I don't like pre-rigging them. And then, like, you end up start catching them on it. Then you got to break one off. You got to re-rig it. I just got to stop being lazy is what it is. That's what it is. But there's days where you just can't beat it. Like, you can't, even dragging a regular Texas rig or a jig around. There are days where, especially if you go to Kerr, you've got to have one in the boat. Like, and really anywhere it's applicable, even on a place like a James. Catch them on the James on it too. It sounds ridiculous, just a little shorter.
It's boring as shit is the problem, and I think it's so boring people don't want to do it. Let's see, Everett, do you target more winter smallies or largies? I've never seriously winter fished. So personally, for me, tournament fishing completely aside, winter smallmouth fishing is the absolute shit, because it's relatively easy, current seams, and you'll catch some effing footballs this time of year. So
Yeah.
I would go to the Susky, Upper Potomac, Shenandoah, and you'll catch, 4-pound smallmouth. It's a lot more fun. Or a muskie.
That sounds way more fun than what I'm doing. Like, I would love to do that.
No scope. If you ever want to come up here and do it, like
I
that's
would
you're just
100% love to go up to the Susky and catch some smallmouth. That would be one trip. I would 100% be like, yeah, I'll leave the bass boat at the house. I'll get in a kayak. I'll walk around on the bank, like as long as I can throw at them.
What's your biggest smallmouth? What's your PR?
4.5.
That's pretty good.
From Oneida up north. Yeah.
Those dogs are different though up there.
No, since I started tournament fishing, a 4.5. But I did on the river that feeds Oneida. I caught smallmouth just over 5 pounds on a original pop R when I was like 11 years old in upstate New York. So
You're kidding?
Yeah, original on a bridge, and I could go back to that bridge right now. You can actually run to it from Oneida. If you launch at the lower end and go up the river and go up, you can eventually get to the bridge that I caught that off of. But it was that was one core memory. I forgot about that one. I almost forgot. But at the time, we were on a canoe. This was with my dad years and years ago. I didn't appreciate how big that was until I started actually bass fishing, and I was like, damn, that wasn't like you don't like, they're mostly 2 pounds, 3 pounds. Like, and Oneida's got a good class of fish now, but I didn't appreciate it for what it was until looking back. And then, I just don't get to do it as much. Like I can go catch some right now. I've got 2 rivers right here by the house especially right here in the wintertime, the smallmouth are down in. Like, I could go catch some, but the biggest one I might catch is a 3 pounder, maybe a 4 pounder would be a freaking absolute giant. Very rare. You're not going to catch them like that. I'd need to go out to Smith Mountain or go up like where you're way up near the Susky or something to actually have a good shot at catching some good ones. But this is the time. I feel like I love winter largemouth fishing, but I feel like, yes, prime time for a smallmouth would be wintertime as long as it's not frozen over, right?
And that's what's crazy is I grew up with like so many river rats. So like this is the time of year you're dragging a tube, a tiny jig, you're fishing the seams. But that did get lost in the largemouth world because of forward facing sonar. Like, you grow up fishing those types of baits. Big D, I know you're in the chat. You still do it. But yeah, once forward facing sonar came around, people just kind of lost that. And I've interviewed people all over the country. No one throws like a tube anymore or a finesse jig. Like, some people do, but it's out of the cultural zeitgeist, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, it's changed things. I mean, I wouldn't say not necessarily for the worse or for the better, but it's just different. I mean, I'm not changing the way I fish. I'm still core, I'm trying to mix in some of this new flair and some of this stuff. Like, the first time I flicked the jig head minnow out there and caught a 5 pounder on it, I was like, well, this is kind of cool. Like, maybe I should do this a little bit. But then so many times I'm out there chasing fish around. They either don't bite, and I'm just like, I turn around. I'm like 500 yards away from the bank. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? They're there. I'm going to keep, and maybe I'm just not stubborn enough. Maybe there's just days where it works, and there are days where I think you can force it too much, but that's bass fishing with anything. So for me, if I'm going to force it, I'm going to force it up on the bank probably before I force it out deep. And I might get burned. There's places where you just can't do that. It's all about where you live. So if I go to Smith Mountain, I'm going to get beat all the time. I mean, I might be able to win a few times out of the year up there, up shallow. But you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to go out deep. You're going to have to learn it. But for me, I'm fortunate in a lot of the places I live and a lot of the lakes I fish, even, I can still win year-round 10 feet or less for the most part, almost everywhere around here. So,
and I feel like when it comes to scope, I'm
even with the scope.
Yeah, there are people that are like 100% all or nothing with the scope. But I think what's great about it that I'm going to try to do next year is how many bonus fish I catch with it when I'm just doing something else. And I think that's what I want to get better at, is knowing when maybe it's just a side gig in the tournament where I scan over, there's one extra I catch and that's it. But I keep going to this. I think so many times, like when I first got scope, it was like, I have to stare at this screen and do nothing else all day. Versus sometimes it's just like, it's not something I'm supposed to be doing.
That's the graph shads. Speaking of scope baits,
Oh.
Z-Man makes this. It's got a little built-in head with a pre-rig on it. It actually looks pretty good. They make it in a couple different colors, so it looks like you could throw that thing out there and definitely catch one on for sure. It's got me intrigued. Kind of want to go dob a minnow out there somewhere.
I mean, dude, like when in Rome, you got to do that. Chris Sherwood says, damn, no one is throwing tubes. I just ordered a bunch from SWFA. No, that's a good thing, dude. Just do that. Keep that secret because they still freaking work. We got B. Cal Jr. What area do you live in, Chaz, without doxing your home?
So I'm in southeastern Virginia. So I'm in Suffolk, Virginia. So I'm south of Richmond, an hour and a half probably. Thomas, I'm probably, 4 hours south of you, maybe. You're in Maryland, right?
Yeah, I'm like on the upper Potomac River, right across the border from Virginia, West Virginia, right there at that.
Yeah, so you're probably about 4.5 hours, something like
yeah.
that.
I'm on 81 basically, so like going to Smith, like that's how I get to Kerr too, is just going straight down that way.
I feel super fortunate. Like the area that I live in or grew up in, I feel is kind of underrated in the grand scheme of things for great fishermen and great fishermen from our area, and we just got a lot. Within an hour and a half of me, 2 hours, let's just say 2 hours. Within 2 hours of me, I can be at the James. I can be in the entire Sound down in Carolina. So any of the Albemarle,
cool.
the Roanoke, which all these rivers produce 10-pounders. The Tar, the Alligator, the Scuppernong, the Perquimans, the Pasquotank, the Yopum, the North Landing, the North, and then of course I've got Back Bay. Potomac's just a little further a ride, and then if I want to go, I got Kerr, I've got Gaston, I've got Roanoke Rapids Lake. Then I've got Anna's like an hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
How far is Mayo and Hyco from
Mayo and Hyco are probably a little further out. Yeah, they're like maybe 2.5, 3 hours maybe. But Jordan and Falls really aren't that far from me. And if I'm going to Kerr, I could be at Jordan or Falls and not that much further, just driving. So I've got a good radius of lakes and rivers and stuff, and a good spread and tidal, non-tidal. You go to the Pamlico Tar down there. They're I don't know. There's a great debate on whether they're actually tidal. They're not tidal in the traditional sense of like the James or the Kerr, but they do have some flow, and they are impacted by the wind. So there's that. We've got naturally flowing rivers, tidal rivers, some that are kind of a mix between the two rivers, small impoundments, and every single one of those bodies of water, with the exception of very few, have, a double-digit bass swimming in them. And some of them have a lot of double-digit bass in them. So I feel like it's great training grounds and a lot of diversity. So that it prepares me for, my lifelong dream is to eventually maybe make the Classic or fish the Elite Series one day. And I feel like growing up around here is going to be a great, test, or it's going to help me be prepared for what's to come. Right. So, you go to a TVA lake, it doesn't really translate to what we do around here, but there are certain elements, a riverine aspect to it. There are the grass, there's lots of grass around here now, whereas there didn't used to be. I feel like
water willow,
hydrilla, eelgrass, coontail, you name it. We've got tons of grass in a lot of the reservoirs and the rivers down here. So that's a new element that my grass game has gotten really good the last 10 years or so.
Do you really think none of the places around here translate to TVA? Because I just think like current, deep rivers.
None. I know.
Just for you to practice?
I think it's the current, right? So it's the consistent. I would say like Roanoke Rapids Lake does.
Probably, yeah.
And maybe even Gaston too, to a degree, when they're actually kind of moving some current through it, but they don't.
Lee, underneath Smith.
Yes.
Is it Lee?
Yeah, my buddy Mike, who commented on this, he fishes there a lot. And he always tells me, I've never fished there, but he always tells me about how much water moves and how the water levels move so much all the time. I would say that was probably applicable too. But but I've been to Chickamauga quite a few times, caught them pretty good at Chickamauga. So you could definitely still just apply what works for you to, like, I try not to go to, I'm not going to go to Chickamauga and think I'm going to go out on the ledges and compete. Like that's kind of an unrealistic thing to think, right? Maybe I might find a good mid-range ledge or something, but like I try to just keep it realistic when I go fish these big tournaments and try to do what suits me best, and then hopefully I expand on it during the tournament and it works. It's never actually worked to the craziest degree, but I had a pretty decent showing at Chickamauga one time, not having any experience there ever, just kind of doing what I know to do. And I mean, I caught 16 something one day, and it was a tournament, but
when the hydrilla got in there good, it really helped equalize that it wasn't just about the ledges. So you could go shallow, and actually, I think that's the same time period you were fishing it. If I'm
probably,
mistaken.
yeah, it's changed so much, and now it gets so much pressure. It gets just completely destroyed. I wouldn't want to go there now. I don't think it's just getting completely pounded. But like I wish I had the time. We were potentially going to go to the Bassmaster Team Championship that was this past weekend out on Kentucky Lake. We got an offer to go do that, but my partner and I we just couldn't make the dates work with my newborn and his work and family and stuff going on. But that we were really both wanting to go do that and go catch smallmouth, because the smallmouth are definitely biting in Kentucky Lake. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely parts of what we do that translate to anywhere that you go. The only thing that I would say, the only place that's ever an outlier, and everyone will tell you this, is Florida. Florida is the only outlier. Like, you're like, oh, I'll go to the Potomac. And it's like, I know grass at the Potomac, and I'll go to Florida. You think that, and then you go to Florida. And then you get Florida'd. Right? That's what happens in Florida, okay? Florida is a hero or zero. Like,
then why is it Florida guys do so well in Potomac and vice versa?
I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe there is some consistency, or there's some similarities there. But Florida's just its own beast, dude. They're just down there. Those fish are just ridiculous.
They're fine fishing in crowds, and they're fine just dragging a weightless Senko in 30 feet. In 8 hours.
Got a lot of love for Florida. I won a Bassmaster Open in Florida, so I got a lot of love for Florida. And
I get you're shitting on the place you won.
I do. I've lived there like 3 times in my life. Okay, and I will say that the bass fishing there it's good when it's on.
Situationally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just reservoirs, and I mean, I don't know. It just depends. But for me, I would much prefer to fish kind of the way we do up here and be more target and hardcover oriented than just a sea of grass and muck bottom everywhere and fishing lily pads and in crowds. But I really do like, my love for grass has grown a lot. So every time I go down there, I try to unlock the grass bite, and I do have more and more fun every time we go down there. Like last year, we went down there for the team championship. We sucked during the tournament, tried to force some stuff. But I remember we went down there and practiced, and we drove down, and we were going to see if we were just driving down the road, and we seen a lake on the side of the road. We're just like, that looks cool. We should pull in there. And we just pulled in there and started fishing. We're like, yeah, it's got grass. And we just started catching them. Like, just a random lake on the side of the road. I'm like, I was telling Jerry, I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, you can't.
That is the cool thing about
like, I just driving down the road, turn the camera on, pull in, find a little ass tiny boat ramp that was like big enough for 3 trucks, back the boat in, just start catching. This is freaking awesome. Like, Florida, anywhere you go, there's water and there's fish, and they're catchable for the most part. Like, they might only be 2-pounders, but they might be 10-pounders. Like, every pothole lake still has the shot of catching a 10 to 15-pounder. Like, they just live down there.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, like Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, criminally slept on with how many big giant fish we have up here too. Like, I mean, you'd be surprised how many 9, 10, 11, 12-pounders get weighed in up here too.
Oh yeah.
It just flies under the radar because we're not Florida, and we're not even North Carolina, especially like Falls and
North Carolina gets shit on a lot because it doesn't have the big sexy lakes that South Carolina does, or the places the bass goes, like the James at the Potomac.
But I would argue that North Carolina has the greatest lineage of bass anglers that there ever was. Like, some of the best bass anglers that shaped the sport are North Carolinians. Like that, David Fritz, just the whole triumvirate, like all around, High Rock to Kerr, like that whole area is legendary. Larry, isn't Hank Parker from North Carolina? Or am I tripping?
Well, he shot enough crap in
I could be wrong. I feel like Hank Parker is from North Carolina as well. Don't shoot me.
Oh, chat, let me know. Like, where's Hank Parker from? We got Paul that says, not in Maryland. Well, no, they got the Potomac River in the Upper Bay, but again, like, it's just insane the amount of tidal fisheries we have from like North Carolina up to Maryland. Paul, you fished a Federation event on some place on the Eastern Shore. I can't even name the goddamn thing. It's some like Indian dyslexic name, the Takawal or whatever. Like that's what was the other place you fished? The Rhine. Let me find you. Here it is. Paul says, ever fished the Neowas?
The Noose.
Whatever it is. Noose. There we go.
I've actually never fished the Noose River. I've heard the whole Noose River Basin. I've heard pretty decent things about. I think it's south of us. I've drove over it a lot. I've never actually fished it, but I think it's smaller fish. If I remember, it's not quite as big of a big fish population as some of the rivers a little north of it in the Albemarle that flow in. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on that. If you're a Neuse River fisherman in this chat and I'm shitting on your bass population.
Don't worry. We had 3 different answers for Hank Parker. We got one that says he's from Georgia. We got one that says he lives on Lake Norman. And we have one that says Denver, North Carolina. So
I feel like I thought he was from Apex, North Carolina or something at one point, but I could be completely wrong on that. But I don't know. But I feel like North Carolina has a great stock of anglers that come from it. But Tennessee gets a lot of love. Alabama, of course, is going to get a lot of love, and Florida's got a lot of great anglers. But like somebody who just commented said they cover water differently, and they do. They do. I fished with Florida. I fished backseat behind some really good anglers from Florida, some guys who fish pro-ams and bass top 150s and stuff, and they do. It's just different. They're wired a little different because of where they live. They're approaching a lake the way they approach it, just like I approach bodies of water, just based on an experience that I have. And then sometimes it works. Or if I go to Florida, then they're like, look, son, this shit doesn't work like that here. They don't eat like that here. So it's all variable. And then like the crossover is where can you take little bits of what you learned in Florida and what you learned in here. And then your smallmouth experience on the Great Lakes or something up north. And then how do you merge all that into a great angler and become a Chris Johnston or a Corey Johnston or a dude that catches them from north to south. Like that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to be, the best angler you can be. But I think we all it's hard. You can't take everything. You can't be everything. You can't be a great smallmouth angler and be the best dude in Florida because there's just not enough time in the day unless you have don't have a job and you just travel and fish 24/7. You can't do that, right? So we have to be realistic. We can only fish however many times a year we can fish and try to make the most of what we can do. And that's all I try to do. I try not to get too far out in one way or the other because I think it hurts us. It hurts me anyways.
Yeah, and then guys, we're gonna get to your questions. You're gonna get all these questions answered before we go tonight. But and that's where I think like you just need to get good at like 4 or 5 lakes, and then you're set. It's like a Lake Hartwell. There's going to be a championship on Hartwell. Can you catch them at Lake Hartwell? A Gunnersville or Lake Eufaula. Can you catch them there? Because there's going to be a championship there. Probably a Kentucky Lake, even though there's not a lot of big events there anymore. Then you have to go up north. Can you catch them on Lake Champlain? If you can do that, pretty much, you're going to be set for the championships and the regionals. And then it's about filling in the hole somewhere else.
Yeah, I think, just got to be a well-versed angler. Just like Texas. You go to Texas, Texas has got its whole,
ecosystem.
Yeah, it just, you don't ever have to leave Texas, and you could just fish every dream lake you ever wanted to ever fish. Rivers too, And they have somehow the Sabine, which is, how do you have all the great, and then you have the Sabine,
because they pay enough money, dude.
It's the same
just a shit show.
State, but it's crazy how that, works.
Well, that thing is a whole political nightmare. But you have Clark's Hill. That place is doing a lot better, but it doesn't get a lot of love in the press because they don't want to pay to go there, generally speaking. But Hartwell will get the shit pounded out of it. Yeah, Kiwi, fished 2 national championships there. I think that place is fun as hell, but it's not big enough or whatever. But that place is still kind of fun.
What about that Chamber of Commerce and who's going to pump the money in to bring them there too? And do they have the accommodations and facilities to do it? It's like there's a lot of other great facilities, a lot of other great places that Bass or MLF could go, but they don't because it's like why the BFLs? No offense, but why is the Shenandoah and the freaking Northeast and all this? It's all the same shit. It's Potomac and Kerr, and that's it. And James, and let's just cycle the dates around so we don't step on each other's toes. But if
it pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same stuff over and over. But it's like it's what they know, it's what they do, it's what it's always been. I don't even know how it works if like for Kerr, like the Henderson, I think the town of Henderson or whatever is the town of Henderson pay for the BFLs and stuff too? Is there an incentive there? I don't know how it all works behind closed doors, but I feel like I don't know why there's not more flexibility in some of the scheduling, or if it's just because they just do what they do and they're not ever going to do anything else. I don't know.
They're not going to do anything else unless there's a big uproar. Because we know that a big uproar will make them change. That's why they went back on the BFL rules for sonar and shit, because enough people bitched. And people don't want to bitch because, let's face it, if the BFL said, I don't want to go to the James River anymore, a lot of people will be mad because they're like, that's how I make my money. If people stop going to Kerr, the 3 anglers that actually enjoy fishing Kerr would be upset. Because they wouldn't be able to make money more.
I guess it is regionally, so it's designed to be a regional tournament. So in that regard,
Timmy, I agree with you 100%. Lake Anna needs a BFL.
Does Lake Anna need a BFL?
Why it could physically?
I would agree with it. Could it physically handle a BFL and people not? I mean, they already can't seem almost get ran over there in a regular freaking tournament. So like,
so South Holston is smaller than Lake Anna, and it holds a BFL every single year that draws about 200 boats. So I think that's 6,000 acres. Chad, help me out. And then Lake Anna is 9,000 public. It's a time of year, though. It's like if you hit it at the right time when the fish are semi up and you have a shallow water bite, it would spread them out.
Good old.
But then that would make the Shenandoah division seem more Shenandoah. That we're not going to North Carolina for the Shenandoah division.
Yeah, I think that was my main part is like all the divisions just become the same.
Yeah.
Like they just have different names, but they fish the same places almost. I don't get that. I mean, it's good for me. Like then I can just hit a James in every division.
And go to Gaston. Well, go to Gaston once. Why not? It's big enough.
Yeah, and Gaston's fishing really good. I mean, this year has been a good year on Gaston overall. Like the weights are good, the largemouth are good, the spots are big. The spots are 4 and 5 pounds. The largemouth population still seems to be very good, and from what I can tell, great. I mean, who was it? Rick Morris said he caught an 8-pounder the other day. Like there's there's big
shout
ones.
Out to Rick.
I mean, there's 8-pounders and 9-pounders, 10-pounders still, even in gas. Even if it's just got 1 million boat docks on it.
I mean, huge shout out to Rick. That stocking program he did worked out though. Let me scroll right over here.
Which one? The spotted stocking program or the
everyone knows. I don't want to. Well, statute of limitations, I think. So he should be fine.
Which program are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Kay, we got a couple questions here, guys, and then we're going to be done. KB Fishing. Do you fish the Bob's Fishing Hole tournament?
I do. I don't. I'm not going to say I fish them all the time anymore, but I fished a lot of Bob's Fishing Hole tournaments. There are great people over there at Bob's. And it's a great trail. There's always good, there's always some good people fishing there. They do Wednesday nighters and they do Saturday and Sundays, but that's the Northwest River, which dumps out to the Intercoastal Waterway. And then from there you can run all over. So I've been a long ways from Bob's in one direction and caught 20 plus pounds and come back, probably 40, 50 miles one way. So you have a lot of options in that regard, and it makes it fun. You can run and you can stay in the river and catch. There's some 10-pounders, legit 25-pound bags coming out of the river there at Bob's, and then you can run out of the river and go to Back Bay or wherever you'd like to go. You can run as far as you'd like and run out of gas and still be around bass.
No, 100%. I got a couple questions here to end up. Timmy says there was a 150 boat tournament on Anna last year, and I barely saw anyone. Would be fine. Yeah, I agree. You could have one on Lake Anna, and I think if the F1 program takes off at Lake Anna, and I literally had the biologist on 2 weeks ago. That show hasn't dropped yet. That they say in about 3 years we'll see our first 5 to 6 pounder F1 show up. So it's still early. If they start dropping dirty 30s left and right, there will be incentive for more people to have tournaments there. Let's just be real. Anglers are whores for big fish.
I got to go back up there. I feel like one of our first tournaments is there this year. I feel like I need to go up there this winter and fish. I've been telling myself. I've only been there 3 or 4 times total myself. I've seen enough to know that there's some big ones in there though. There
are some big ones. I mean, it's not like Smith or these other places, but it's definitely slept on. People used to call it, the Dead Sea and stuff. There's a shit ton of water willow. The fishing has really come back.
I definitely seen enough. I've seen enough in the last couple of years, fishing it early spring, throwing some big swim baits and stuff around. I've seen some big ones in there. So I know what everyone's talking about on why they want tournaments up there. Because it's a cool, and it's for as small as it is, it's pretty diverse.
Yeah. And as Russ says, it's taken 22 pounds the past couple of tournaments to win. And then Russ, I did see Matt's SB Fishing's bag, and I'm going to have him on the show. I think it's this week to talk about that. Yep. Or was the last question? I have 2 questions left. Okay, let's go. Let's go with this one first, and we'll end with the other one. Does anyone know of a good wintering fishing spot near Fredericksburg, Virginia? The Rappahannock, the non-title for smallmouth.
I don't, and quote me because y'all, that's whole Northern Virginia. We don't claim that, but
you call that Northern Virginia?
No, I'm just kidding. Isn't the Res right up there? Not far from there?
Yeah, about another hour and a half up the road, but yeah. The Res is there. Mooney has had, between SB, McCluskey, and all of them, they've pulled out like a couple of 8 and 10 pounders this fall and winter out of there. That place is fucking pumping, but that has blueback in it. They just found blueback in that thing. No shit. That's why they're pumping out massive fish.
Is that a horsepower restricted lake, Mooney? Can you get in there?
You can throw you can throw your big boat in there, but you can't just fire up the Mercury. You have to use your trolling motor. But it's 800 acres.
Oh, so it's comparable to the lakes we got down here. Then
yeah. You got that, Hunting Run, Nye, Able. There's like 5 or 6 electric motor only lakes.
Okay, right, so it's a similar setup then to what we got down.
Yeah. Your lakes are bigger though, right? You've like 1,000-acre lake.
Yeah, they're all Western Branch is over 1,000. The rest of them are just under 1,000, I think. Most of them are.
That's insane. That's a big lake for a trolling motor only.
Well, no, ours aren't trolling motor only though. They're 9.9 horse or less. So isn't the Res, isn't it horsepower restricted?
9.9.
Yeah, so ours too, except nobody's running a 9.9. Everyone's running a 20 with a delete and all that stuff. But yeah, sorry guys.
No, I mean, from the Res tournaments I fished this year, I could see some people maybe spiking their engines a little bit.
You're like, is that 16-foot boat with a 9.9 really doing 30 miles an hour?
Oh, God,
all right, cool. Yeah.
With those lithiums. Let's see. Anna dropped some huge bags, but it's always the same teams that catch them. Well, that's because the lake is small and like they all stack in the same places. But hey, Paul, this is the same damn thing on the Upper Bay. On the Upper Bay, it's the same teams that always catch them up there on the flats. So
well, I mean, it's time though, right? So for me, right? I mean, it's just like anything. If you came down to Suffolk, like more often than not, if I was fishing a bunch, my name's going to be in the top discussion just because it's where I live. And you would expect if you live in Anna and you're catching them and you devote a lot of time, you would hope that your name's going to be there too. Like those guys that catch them up there, I mean, the Sullivan catches them a lot. I don't know all these guys, but like you can pretty much see the standings and see the guys that put in a lot of time out there and are there when you don't notice their names when they're not always catching them, but when they show up, they show up. But they always show up and they've spent a lot of time doing it. So I would expect that's how it should be. You know what I mean? Like, I would hope that you would catch them. If you're out there spending a ton of time, they always seem to catch them. The top 2 or 3 people are always whacking them down there. But I mean, would you go catch 25 or 26 pounds and then go home and not come back the next weekend and try to do it again? Of course you would. Like that's why we do this.
Yeah, and if you figure out those honey holes, like it is like on the, especially smaller lakes, like there's only so many places that those fish are going to winter. And you can, and it's the same thing with like up where I'm at, where they have jet boat tournaments. The smallmouth will, in a 50-mile stretch of river, they'll congregate in like 2 places in these big slack eddies, and the boats will stack in those areas. It's not that bad on some of these places.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of those top guys up in Anna, I'm sure they have company, but I'm sure some of them got nuggets and stuff. Like I've been up there in the wintertime on some of those tournaments, and I've seen, you got the right line, you pull out an A-rig on the right brush pile at the right time, so you got the right milk run. That's just how it is. It's just like you go anywhere. You go to Kerr, it's the same thing. You go to, the Res, I'm sure it's the same thing. You go anywhere, it's all situational. It's all about where you go. Those big fish live in all these lakes, and they set up differently in all of them. And if you hope to spend enough time out there, that you eventually can run into one of them or 5 of them. 5 of them. Hopefully.
Yeah, no, exactly. Dude, yeah, exactly. All right, guys, you got last 2 questions. Tyler, you messaged 3 times in a row, and none of that is a coherent sentence or I can't read. So if you want to message that again. Paul says, yeah, that's why I don't fish the Upper Bay every weekend. Like, okay, fair enough. And then Randy has a question here. Are spinnerbaits good early spring when bass are on beds?
Absolutely.
There you go, Randy.
They're good before the bed, and they're good all the way until they come off the bed.
And then last question is this. All right, guys, last question of the night here from Ricky Falk. What is going on in Back Bay? Is it coming back?
So I would say yes. I wouldn't say that I'm 100% the person to make that call, but I've heard some good things. The few times I've been over there, I've seen some good things. There's definitely some big fish over there. I would say it's not the Back Bay of the 80s. It's not the world-renowned fishing that it once was, but it is very good. The grass is very good. And barring another catastrophic hurricane hit, if we can just, keep that from happening, I do think we're well on the – it's right now it's kind of a unkept secret. There's a lot of guys that are running out of that Bob's Fishing Hole tournament that they was talking about that are going to Back Bay every weekend and catching them and coming back. So you can see more often than not, you can see when the fish come back because they do not look the same. They do not look like the fish that come from the Bob's because they're in grass and they're living in a completely different environment than what Bob's is. Bob's is cypress trees, no grass, very acidic water. Back Bay is about depending on how fast your boat is, 30-minute run, 40-minute run to get to Back Bay, maybe less. But once you get into Back Bay, and it's massive and you got a lot of cover, but it's shallow. So you've got to pick your poison. You've got to make sure you look at the winds. You've got to.
Will the elites destroy it when they go there?
I think it's going to get exposed for sure. The timing is right. The thing about it though,
that's a hell of a run.
It's a hell of a run. I do believe they could plan and get gas. I do think there was. No, I mean you're gonna.
That's impressive.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get gas probably. The question is I don't know. Can you get gas in Coin Jock?
That's your area of the country.
Yeah,
dude.
But if you can't get it, and that's in the North River, guys who are listening said no. If you can't get gas in the North River, where else would you get gas? Would you have to duck into I don't know. You would definitely have to get gas, I think, if you went to Back Bay. I think you would need gas because you'd have to run the whole length of the sound through the North River, through the No Idle, out of the North River, up and out, cross up up towards the North Landing, hook into the canal and in. And then once you got to there, if you really wanted to run, and if you're talking a bed situation in April, you still got another 15, 20 miles.
I think it's too far. I don't know how many people are really going to do that.
I mean, guys are running the Sabine to Houston and shit. So, I mean, you could run 2 hours one way. No,
but the Sabine sucks that badly. You need to go that far.
You're right. So, and you're absolutely right. So where they're launching though, they're launching in the juice. That's all.
Yeah. So
the tournament could potentially be won in the river they're launching out of. I just don't know how that's going to work because they're not launching down in Edenton like I thought they would. They're actually launching out of the Pasquotank in the ramp situation. I'm not sure how it's going to handle an Elite Series event, but I'm very curious to see because, you know, the first time I went down to the Pasquotank, I caught a 9 and a 7 on almost back-to-back casts. So Jesus. Jared caught almost 30 pounds the very first day he went there. So it has the potential for some massive bags, especially in April. The X factor is going to be the wind. And then where does everyone go? I don't know that Back Bay would be worth it.
I don't think so.
I don't know that it would be worth it. There's going to be guys who are going to try it just to get away from the crowds, I think. But the canals are going to play a huge factor. All the canals on all those rivers are going to play a huge factor. I just don't know if any of them are sustained for 4 days. Like you're going to see a couple of 10-pounders. You're going to see maybe a couple of 30-pound bags, but I just don't know how that's going to work over 4 days. I think people are going to have to probably live in more than one river unless somebody finds some really good staging stuff. I think in the Chowan or the Roanoke, I think is probably where it's going to be potentially one, but I think people are going to have to mix it up. I think it's going to be really hard to stay on one river and win that tournament. You're going to have to
It'll be interesting to see. I can't
wait. I'm looking forward to it. I can tell you that, but I'm not looking forward to it because they are going to expose some stuff. It's not going to be good.
It'll be interesting to see because I think all these estuaries are the last bastion of fishing because they don't have the issue with homeowners. They're not spraying and you have so many rivers that are popping off right now. It's insane. So
yeah, it's going to be incredible.
But Chaz, I mean, dude, I've kept you long enough. You got wife and kids and things you actually got to do. Is there anything I can promote?
Yeah, man. You know, I'm a sponsorless guy. I don't have a whole lot of support. It's me and my bank account gets all this tackle behind you or behind me. I'm sure you can understand. But, you know, I do appreciate the few people who support me. So Build a Pain Fishing, Kistler Rods, PH Custom Lures. But outside of that, you know, just check out my YouTube channel. I'm really going to try to get better at that. I've been neglecting it all summer. Like I said, I was going to get better at it. And then life gets in the way. But I'm going to try to put some more videos out on that. You guys want to follow me on that? That'd be cool. I appreciate all the support as always.
Dude, well, I want to promote the shit out of you guys. If you want to go help him out. Link in the episode description to all of his social medias. Go check him out. If you guys missed this, don't worry. I'm going to be re-uploading it here. I think either tomorrow or Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure I don't get dinged for anything I said, like the OJ Dong comment. That's fine. But anyway, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time on Fishing the DMV.
All right,
bye.
Man. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.